Tonight's meal, tilapia surprise with boiled cabbage. Begin cooking steps 1 through 50 now.
Are you kidding me? Making dinner shouldn't feel like doing a 1,000-piece puzzle. With Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals, the hard part's already done. Pre-chopped ingredients, zero stress. Just assemble, bake, and enjoy. No complicated steps, no mountain of dishes. Try Assemble and Bake today. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
This episode is brought to you by Paranormal Playback, a new podcast where hosts Shar, Mel and Laura recap the spooky and entertaining world of paranormal reality TV. Each week they take a fresh look at popular shows like Ghost Adventures and Kindred Spirits, blending humour with insight as they pull apart what's happening on screen. The 3 of them are a mix of believers and skeptics, which makes for really fun conversations, sometimes leaning into mystery, other times asking the questions viewers might be thinking themselves. With their background in creative production, they know how these shows are put together, so they're great at pointing out the moments that feel real versus the ones that might be more for the cameras. And their segment, This Old Haunt, digs into the true crime side of paranormal investigations, separating fact from fiction. With Halloween coming up, it's the perfect time to add something spooky, funny and a little addictive to your playlist. For even more spooky, ghostly, paranormal content with a humorous spin, go check out Paranormal Playback. Hello listeners, welcome back to another episode of Scary. Sorry I'm a day late, this week has been absolutely crazy. But here we are, and before we get into the main episode, we need to say a special thank you to our new Patreon subscribers who are Tina Louise, Whitney, Jay North, Vicky Donaldson, Scarlett, Susan Isaac, and Connor Davey. Thank you so much for signing up to the Patreon, and as always, if this is something you're interested in, you can find the link in this episode's show notes, or you can simply go to patreon.com/scaryaparanormalpodcast, where you can gain access to ad-free main episodes and exclusive scary episodes. But now, let's get into our next paranormal encounter. Our story took place back in early 2003. During that time, my wife and I had come across this Victorian terraced house that was in a busy suburb just outside of Manchester. I clearly remember the day we got the keys from the estate agent. It was mid-February and it was pretty grey and damp. It was definitely a really exciting time. I remember walking through the house with my wife and us pointing out things that we wanted to fix and paint and restore, keep that, get rid of this. The previous owners had, I guess you could say, pretty much neglected the property. It was like a time capsule from, I don't know, the 70s, I guess. Just really old-fashioned wallpaper and really worn carpets that had wooden floorboards underneath that we were so eager to sand down. The first few days were exhausting but optimistic. When I think back now, I think of how naive we were. The house was a huge undertaking. It wasn't just wallpaper that needed to be stripped and carpets took up. There was major problems that we had completely overlooked, and even at this stage we were not even aware of half of the things. I started working on one of the bedrooms first. We intended it to be the guest room, but we thought if we got it up to a good standard, we could take that as our bedroom and then do up the other room and then swap back over. The wallpaper in that room was particularly stubborn. There was just layers of wallpaper and paint. One layer wallpaper, take that off, the next was painted over wallpaper. One afternoon, after about an hour of scraping, as I'm standing there with the scraper in hand and just bits of paper all over the floor, I saw this shadow pass by the doorway. It wasn't a faint flicker or, in my opinion, a trick of the eye. It was a slow, clear movement across the doorway. It wasn't a darting movement or what could be a reflection of something shooting past. I just remember turning pretty sharply and feeling a bit surprised. As far as I knew, I was in the house on my own. My wife was gone into town. I went into the hall and had a look around. It was completely empty. The whole place was silent. I just remember standing there really, really still, just straining to hear a sound, and called out, "Hello?" Went from room to room, went downstairs, looked all around. Nobody there. In the end, I think I put it down to a reflection from a passing car outside. It was a new place, and, you know, I wasn't quite used to it. That night, we're sitting at our small kitchen table. I mentioned it to my wife, and she smiled and kind of raised an eyebrow. Over the next few days, the spare room became gradually uncomfortable to be in. That's how I would describe it. It felt colder than the other rooms, and I recall standing by the window and touching the radiator, which was pretty hot, but the room was really, really cold. One evening, while I was packing up my tools, I caught the movement again just outside the door. This time it seemed faster than the last time. I want to say it felt like someone was peeking around the corner of the door, and just when I saw them out of the corner of my eye, they duck away. I pretty much ran to the door because I wanted to see if I could see this shadow somewhere down the hallway. And when I got there, same story, completely empty. So I just remember calling out, "Sarah," even though I knew she'd gone to the shop. And the house was just completely silent and empty again. The second time seeing this shadow that kind of ducked away was, I want to say, unsettling. As the days went on, I told myself to ignore it. Just focused on the renovation plans. It was now about 2 weeks after we moved in, and I guess call it renovation fatigue or whatever you want to call it. There was a mess everywhere, and the house started to feel different. It wasn't, for me anyway, this exciting project that it felt like it was 2 weeks earlier. I couldn't say I was enjoying being in the house. It was a Thursday evening. I'd spent the day sanding down skirting boards, and I was absolutely coated in dust. It was in my hair, it was on my arms. Even though I was wearing a mask, it somehow managed to be halfway up my nose. So I decided to give myself a shower and try feel human again. The bathroom in the house was this narrow, awkward little space, at the back. It wasn't the original bathroom. That bathroom was in need of complete renovation. Anyway, I used the downstairs bathroom. I remember when I went in there, turned on the light, that the fan had stopped working. It was just making this buzzing noise, but it wasn't extracting any of the air or steam. So I stepped into the shower, stood there for a few minutes, wiping the dust off my hair and my face. And then I heard this soft kind of muffled voice coming from just outside the bathroom door. To me, it sounded like a child's voice. We didn't have any children back then or now. I couldn't tell you what this voice said, but it was definitely a higher pitched, I want to say, child's voice. So I turned off the shower and I listened for a moment. Heard nothing. Turned the shower back on. And then I hear this voice again, but this time it was louder. Same voice. Turn off the shower again. This time I grabbed a towel, opened the bathroom door, shouted hello. Nobody is in the house. About 5 minutes later, my wife comes in the front door. And I tell her how I heard a child's voice when I was in the shower. And she just laughed at me. She's definitely more rational than me. And I think we ended up putting it down to possible noises coming in through the fan from outside. It wasn't working after all. Maybe from neighbours' kids playing outside or something. A few nights after that, things really escalated. Sarah had woken at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and she said that she opened her eyes and immediately felt anxious, really, really alert. She said that it felt like she had a nightmare and woke up out of a really bad dream. But she said she didn't remember having a nightmare or having a really bad dream. She said that she lay there for a few minutes and then realised that she needed to go to the toilet. So off she went downstairs. She said that she finished up, opened the bathroom door, and as she stepped into the hallway, something shoved her really hard from behind. She said it was a definite push. Her whole body was pushed against the wall. I woke up to hear her scream, and then this running on the stairs, like somebody was racing up the stairs up to the bedroom. So I just quickly got out of the bed and went to the door of the bedroom. When I opened it, I expected to see her there outside, because this running noise was coming from downstairs. I had heard it come closer to the bedroom door. I opened the bedroom door and there's nobody outside the bedroom, and she's down in the hall screaming and crying. She's hysterical downstairs, saying, "Did you hear that? Someone just ran up the stairs." Nobody had run up the stairs. There was nobody in the house. The front and back door were locked. We checked all the windows. Everything was fine. I asked her, did she see anything, and she said no. She said that she just felt a really hard push, like as if somebody pushed her out of the way to run past and then ran up the stairs, but she said she saw nobody on the stairs. That night we didn't sleep for the rest of the night at all. We ended up watching TV and just being really freaked out about the whole thing. It was pretty terrifying. That Saturday afternoon, we'd both gone into town to pick up a few bits from a builder's merchant. Plasterboard, sealant, paint samples, that kind of thing. We were gone for about 2 hours. When we came back, we opened the front door and immediately heard what sounded like something heavy being dragged across the floor upstairs in the spare room, the one that we'd started renovating. And this was not just once or twice. We stood in the hallway and listened to this continuous, long, grating sound across the floorboards. It sounded like a chest of drawers or a table being dragged along the floor. And you could not put this down to neighbours next door moving things. It was so loud. We both went upstairs to check, and we walked down the hallway fully expecting to see somebody inside. And we just got closer and closer with this sound still really, really loud. And when we got to the door and looked inside, the sound just stopped. There wasn't even any furniture in the room that you could move. I think after that we pretty much immediately had conversations to each other saying, I think we made a big mistake buying this place. And that may seem like we were jumping the gun. All I can say is that it was a horrible feeling in the house at times. Like a really, really bad feeling, a feeling of dread. And it all kind of came upon us really quickly. We had many, many conversations, playing out different scenarios, what we could do. And even though you hear these stories of people having haunted houses and getting them blessed or bringing in somebody who's spiritually inclined to do something, we both said that even if we did get somebody in and get them to clear the spirit away, that we didn't want to live there. It was so shocking to hear the noises of something that is not there. I don't know how I would have felt if I had heard the noise on my own. I think I genuinely would have thought that I was losing my mind. Or if everything that was happening in the house was happening to just one person, I would think there was something medically wrong with me. But because these things were happening to both of us, there was a bit of comfort in that. From that day on, we stopped renovating the house and we started looking for somewhere else. We would try eat out as often as we could and just sleep in the house at night, just keeping the spare room door closed because that's where most of this activity was. And we had this rule that if either of us needed to use the toilet in the middle of the night, that we'd both go. We ended up staying in the house for 2 more weeks, and then we got a short-term let. In those 2 weeks, we heard so many things in the house. One time we heard doors slamming downstairs repeatedly, like somebody was opening and then shutting the door, opening, shutting the door. Another time we heard this thudding across the upstairs hallway, like somebody was wearing really heavy boots. Like, we're talking really loud footsteps here. These were unmistakable. Nearly always at night time. And we heard the dragging of furniture in the spare room once more. The same type of thing. We didn't even bother opening the door to that spare room because it was upstairs. There was nothing in the room. We knew it was empty and that nobody would be in there. We ended up telling family and friends that the house was just too big of a project and that we didn't realise all the things that needed to be done, which technically was the truth. But the real reason why we moved out is because it was haunted. There was some sort of entity or presence in the house. Definitely. And we didn't tell anybody for years. We ended up selling it, felt incredibly guilty, and bought a house that was a lot more manageable. And the main thing was, it wasn't haunted. Thank you to Alex and Sarah for sending in their paranormal encounter, and don't forget, if you have your own paranormal story that you'd like me to narrate on the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast@gmail.com, and it just might get made into a future episode. Lastly, I want to say a special thanks to everybody who's taken the time to write a review of the podcast and offer up 5 stars. Thank you so much. Your kind words definitely do keep me going. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and join me next time for another episode of Scary.
Take control of the numbers and supercharge your small business with Xero. That's Xero. With our easy-to-use accounting software with automation and reporting features, you'll spend less time on manual tasks and more time understanding how your business is doing. 87% of surveyed U.S. customers agree Xero helps improve financial visibility. Search Xero with an X or visit xero.com/ACAST to start your 30-day free trial. Conditions apply.
Dibrig tú go díon nó chánig tú go díon chathair seo, fuair his neart taithí agus d'arbar de chud scilline. I ngácháte éigean tú, fecinn tú rud éige na chabhraigh tú a thógáil, ach aníis tá tú ag féchant ar an todhchaí, agus beidir go bhfuil tú ag smaoinemh ar an áit as a dagan tú. In éireann, tastaíonn pleanálathe, siúnéirí, ploméirí, díanadóirí, inaltóirí, altíirí, banistóirí láithreáin agus níos móhain. Tastaíonn túhain, le do chud scilline agus taithí go léir, chun cabhrúlinn na mílte tithe a thógáil. Tá an domhan tóga agat, a níos tar a rás agus tógan teach a thóg tú. Tuile eolais ag gov.ie/Building Ireland. Teachtareacht ó rialtas na hÉireann.
Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Berner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same. They're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details.